Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers, and thank you for joining me tonight's broadcast this week in North America. Well, we've come a long way, haven't we? After 2 years of being on the air and speaking about issues affecting the United States and Canada in particularly, we now have a worldwide audience. And I'm so pleased and grateful to all of you who have spread the word and who have shared these videos with people who want to be free not only in America and in Canada, but free around the world. Now, I'm going to have a couple of special guests tonight. My first guest in a few moments, he's going to become, without a doubt, believe me, without a doubt, the next governor of the state of New Jersey. His name is Jack Ciattarelli, and you're going to be hearing probably, a rare occasion, if you will, a guy involved in political leadership who's not a politician. He's a public servant. And we need more of him around this planet, believe me, and around this country. So we're going to talk about what happened to civility and dignity and honor and respect in American politics. We're also going to talk about education in America, where it is and where it needs to go in order to strengthen our economy in the future, strengthen the will of the people in this nation to stand up and to speak out. And we're going to talk to him about the effects of the Democrat policies, not only across the United States, but right here in the state of New Jersey. We're also going to have Wayne Peters on. You all in Canada know who Wayne Peters is. He's involved with What's Up Canada. He'll be joining me, and we're going to be talking about a number of issues that continue to affect the people of Canada. But before I introduce Jack, I have to say something. I have to share with the Canadian people something that needs to be said. I continue to receive letters and emails, not hundreds, but this week alone, another 1,500 from great people in Canada and many here across the country in the United States. But I want to particularly address the people in Canada. I know what you're going through. How do I know? Well, I'm reading your letters. But it's not only I know what you're going through, but members of the European Parliament know what you're going through. We've spoken to legislators here, what you're facing there. And it's something that I've said all along. It's getting to a point where it is indeed threatening the national security of the United States. And we'll be talking about that more and more as we move forward. But this is what I'd like to share with you. Those of you who are distressed and downtrodden, I'd like to share with you two specific things. Look at America. Look at what we've faced. Look what we went through. And look where we are today. We have a Republican Congress. We're going to have a Republican Senate. And yes, we will have a Republican president of the United States. And we'll have Republican governors like the individual you'll just hear from here in New Jersey. And the reason why I tell you that is all of this success, it was slow, but it was sure. And it was as a result of grassroots Americans standing up and saying, enough is enough. But I want to share with you something I read this morning. In fact, sometimes, I always say, God doesn't speak to me with a loud voice, a bolt of lightning. But something happens. What happened this morning is I grabbed a shirt and a coin, a big challenge coin, fell out of that shirt pocket and landed on the floor, and I picked it up. And here's what it said. And this is for those of you, whether you're American or Canadian or anywhere on earth, looking to secure freedom and liberty for you and your families. Here's what it said. We are hard pressed on every side, but we are not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, persecuted, but not abandoned, struck down, but not destroyed. That's out of the book of 2 Corinthians. Yep, you're going to be persecuted, struck down, you're going to be perplexed, but you're not going to end up in a state of despair where you're going to give up. And what you're going to do is understand that, as I said all along, at the end of the day, those looking to disrupt our freedom and to take it from us, at the end of the day, they lose and we win. So I'm going to introduce our next guest, Jack Ciattarelli, but I'm also going to ask you to stand by at the end of the broadcast because tomorrow night, Friday night, we're going to have a very special guest on that is very familiar to all of those of you who have watched us in Canada and across America. You're not going to want to miss who we're going to have on tomorrow night because he is a man who is a very good man. He is involved in government in some way in Canada, but he was put in jail for speaking up and standing up against the Trudeau government. So that's tomorrow night, Friday at 7 p.m. And I gave you his name at the end of the broadcast, but I want to get to our very special guest and a good friend of mine. I'm going to call you governor. I ain't going to give up. Governor Jack Ciattarelli, GOP candidate for governor of the state of New Jersey.
Steve, it's great to be with you, and congratulations on the reach that you've achieved all throughout North America and into Europe as well. It has a lot to do with your energy and your commitment to freedom and liberty for all people.
Well, thank you so much. Jack, would you mind if I called you Jack? Yeah.
I'd be upset if you didn't, Steve.
I'm so used to Jack Chat. In fact, let's start with that. How you're connected to the people of New Jersey and many around America, because many around America have listened to Jack Chat. And this is the way it should be done. Go ahead. What is Jack Chat?
Well, Jack Chat is something we did all throughout the course of the gubernatorial campaign, where we'd spend 1 or 2 minutes out and about across New Jersey, having a chat with New Jerseyans about hot button issues, kitchen table issues. And I mean, that's the great thing about New Jersey, Steve. You can get up and down this state and press the flesh. We did a magnificent diner tour. I think we hit all 3,000 of them. But speaking to New Jerseyans every single day is what makes you a great candidate.
You know, you use that term, kitchen table issues, and I smile because it caught on, because it's true. People are speaking about these issues at the kitchen table. Even your opposition. This is why I'm laughing. During the campaign.
I got to tell you, it's very flattering. I talked about kitchen table issues and used that terminology all during the race. I talked about common sense conservatism. I talked about the mainstream majority. And it caught on because when I tune in TV interviews, I hear people using that language. So I take it as a compliment. But really, that's what politics is all about today. Let's keep it simple. Let's get back to the basics. And let's get back to, as the Republican Party, being the party of ideas, the party of solutions. That's what gets people excited.
Well, you did get New Jersey excited, but not only did you get Republicans excited, but you got independents excited, and remarkably, you drew a lot. I'm talking thousands of Democrats to support you. And I believe, and you've had these conversations, that you employed the Reagan doctrine when you ran. Very rare in politics. And it's about civility, respect, dignity, and honor. You used all of that and ran one of the most dynamic, strongest campaigns in really the recent history of this state against an incumbent Democrat.
The kind words are greatly appreciated, Steve, and I also appreciate you taking notice the way we went about our business. Ronald Reagan genuinely liked people, and he genuinely cared about people. And it showed in his candidacy when he was out amongst the people. He didn't hold anything against you. He didn't prejudge you. He never judged a book by its cover. And that's why so many people across the political spectrum voted for Ronald Reagan. And so I've always tried to emulate him, as well as Abraham Lincoln, our greatest president, our first Republican president. And listen, let's face it, New Jersey is not a deep blue state, but Democrats do outnumber Republicans by 1 million. And I think the way we talk about the issues matters. Particularly in an era of great polarization and divisiveness. We can talk passionately about the issues. We can talk with great conviction in a way that doesn't alienate people. We need them to listen, particularly when we're in the minority party, as we are here in New Jersey.
Jack, I've always said, and I believe, that the national security of this country begins in elementary school. What we teach our children, what we share with them. They spend probably more time in a classroom than at home, at least during the week. Education in America is devastated our young people. In New Jersey, it's done a lot of destructive stuff with regard to replacing educating children with indoctrinating children. Could you please share with the people across America, because a lot of people, when we put this advertisement out there that you were coming on, I did get quite a response. And they wanted to learn about a guy named Jack Ciattarelli because they heard about you. Education.
Everything you just said, Steve, and add to that Murphy shut down the schools for 2 consecutive years. Now, the very beginning of the pandemic, there was a lot we didn't know, and we can understand the very cautious approach. But once we got into this, there was no reason to shut down schools, particularly in that second year. Remote learning doesn't work, and we're seeing the consequences of that. New Jersey's reading and math scores are at a 5-year low. The fear is that some children will never catch up. And making matters worse are all the things that Murphy, as an unabashedly progressive, has done to the public school curriculum. My goodness, we need to get back to basics. And that's teaching reading, writing, math, and of course our history. And let's teach the good, the bad, the beautiful, and the ugly about our history. But let's teach our history, particularly civics. We want people to be feeling proud to be Americans. There's a lot that we didn't get perfectly right. But, Steve, I don't know of any nation on earth since the beginning of time that's been perfect. But there's a lot to celebrate here. We're a beacon of hope for the rest of the world. We are, as Abraham Lincoln coined us, the last best hope of earth.
I know you saw President Joe Biden give his speech the other night. And what troubled me about his speech, he was trying to tell us that things are just great, that they're wonderful, that we're doing fine. But when you go into those small business owners in New Jersey, when you talk to mom and dad, and you talk to people at their kitchen table, foreclosures are up, they're losing their jobs, living not paycheck to paycheck, Jack, but credit card to credit card. And there we got the president telling us how great things are. And how about this? Maybe this is a first. I know some of the media is watching. Believe me, I know they're watching particularly because Jack Ciattarelli's on. But there was a Republican response. But I'd like to hear, and I think America would like to hear, a grassroots Republican response from a grassroots guy that made it because he put together the American dream. So could you share and spend a little time, if you want, to respond to what Joe Biden had to say?
With any state of the state, Steve, we expect the victory dance. I mean, that's the choreography of politics and the state of the state. But I do think taking a very unorthodox approach by playing it completely straight with the American people would work wonders to restore their faith that our leadership has its eye on the ball, that it's not tone deaf to what people are going through. I do think the administration right now is overplaying what they call a 50-year low in the unemployment rate, and that suddenly means that everything is rosy. It's not. I do grocery shopping here for the family, along with my wife, and it's amazing what you're paying for some items. And your heart bleeds for those people that are trying to raise their kids today. And as you said, living paycheck to paycheck and starting to use the credit card for some of your regular purchases like groceries. So these are not easy times. And the other people that you mentioned that are so critical to our economy, especially here in New Jersey, are those small business owners on Main Street. It has never been harder to operate a small business, which is the backbone of the American economy and the New Jersey economy. Talk to small business owners what they're up against today between the wage inflation and all the other inflationary items. So I think Biden would have done better if he played it a little more straight with the American people about what's really giving people a great deal of anxiety. And it's not just the economy. I know a great many parents have anxiousness about sending their kids to school today, about all the things that are being taught in school. I really believe we got to get back to basics. We can't afford to have our reading and math scores at a 5-year low here in New Jersey.
Speaking of school, we had a tragedy in I think it was Ocean County. I think the media reported that a young girl, I believe she was a high school student, was bullied, beaten and bullied, maybe more than once. I don't know. But the tragic end of that story is, Jack, it's reported that she committed suicide. And what troubled me, and of course, I'm going to ask you to weigh in on this because it goes to the point of what in the world is going on in our schools. I've heard this over and over again where school administrators either afraid to take action or they don't bring delivery of help. And I'm not indicting the school district administrators down there, but I do question somebody had to know there were bullies in that school and nobody took action. And now we have a young girl dead.
This is no time to be cautious if you sense that anybody is in crisis or deeply troubled. Just before I came on with you, Steve, I was watching the 6 o'clock news and I saw the video of the bullying that took place in the hallway that supposedly led to this young lady's suicide. And I got to tell you, it's a pretty ugly scene what was being done to her in the hallway by a couple of other students who've now been suspended. I have a hard time believing that was just an isolated moment, that this seems to be something that was taking place over the course of time. And it speaks to, Steve, what we have in this country is a mental health crisis, and it's affecting all age groups. And we need to address the mental health crisis throughout the country. It's a very, very challenging time right now.
Jack, I tweeted out earlier in reference to this young lady's suicide that those who beat her should be charged with involuntary manslaughter, They should not be suspended. They should be put behind bars where they belong, and the school administrator should be held accountable. Now, this is my emotion, expressing it, but as a parent, I don't understand, and I want to talk to you and lead this into about crime in New Jersey and around the country. We got a kid on video being beaten, and as a result of that beating, commits suicide, and we suspended them. I don't get it. It's like bail reform. I'm talking to cops. I know you have. They arrest these really violent, bad people, and before they get to headquarters, and we've heard this over and over again in New Jersey, the prosecutors let them out on the street again to commit another crime.
The county prosecutor in Ocean will be involved in this incident that resulted in the suicide of a teenage girl, and it's our hope that they will pursue the case aggressively in finding out what truly happened and what the consequences need to be of those that were guilty of the bullying. But Steve, one of the outcomes of the pandemic is we just seem to be going through a period of lawlessness where people have no respect for the law, the rule of law, or even respect for law enforcement professionals. And one thing I said all throughout the campaign is the job of the law enforcement professional has never been harder, and they need to know that the political leadership has their back. Now, are there bad eggs? You bet there are. There are bad professionals in every profession, and we need to weed those people out. But 99% are very, very honorable people that are trying to do a very, very difficult job. And again, they need to know that we have their back. But I will say, Steve, that the intentions of bail reform were good, but there's been some unintended consequences, one of which is, and we've heard the term before, arrest, release, repeat. And it's very, very discouraging and costly for law enforcement to have to arrest the same person for a second or third time for the same offense in a short period of time because they know they can be set free. So whether it's 3 strikes and you're out or some other tweaks to the bail reform, but I do think that we need to revisit that public policy.
During the campaign, your campaign, I noticed something very interesting. You were bringing people together from all walks of life, whether it be the African American community, the Indian community, you name it. Boy, they were coming to your campaign, and I believe they were coming because I did ask a lot of questions. I asked people, what is it that he's doing? You were listening. You went to those communities, and it leads me to this. I know you're a big, big advocate of bringing people together. So are we going to see once again, as we did in the 90s, community policing, getting those cops back in a good relationship with our communities at risk? And let's face it, no one can deny that many of our minority communities are at risk. They've been promised so much, and the Democrats particularly haven't delivered. And I'm just hoping and praying that, and I believe when you become governor, you're going to deliver because you've been delivering all along.
Specific to law enforcement, Steve, I do think that maybe we need to revisit the training standards that our law enforcement professionals go through, whether it's greater cultural competency and more training in de-escalation. Those are certainly things that we can do to improve the law enforcement community's efforts in the community. But yeah, listen, I've often said whenever I've been asked, what is the first responsibility of a elected official or a candidate for that matter, I've always said the first responsibility is to listen. And New Jersey being the most diverse state in the country, I think we have a responsibility to bring people together. I love our diversity. I see power and beauty in that diversity. It provides a very unique opportunity to bring people together, especially in a state as densely populated as ours. I mean, after all, we're not Texas or California. We're a pretty small geography that 9.3 million are packed into. And but I think it's one of the things that makes New Jersey so very dynamic. And I find that people start feeling better about themselves, their community, and our state when we deliver the message that we're all in this together and we're all in the room together listening to each other.
Well, you see, that's a message that should be given. But the police in this state, I'm a career law enforcement guy. They've been devastated by the narrative that the Democrats have pushed out. For example, the cops are not able to do their jobs anymore. I've talked to many in this state and many in New York. They are turning their backs, not purposely, but they're turning their heads. They're saying, look, before, I mean, one cop tragically told me if he's ever in a shooting, the criminal will have to take the first shot. even though I could prevent that guy or that gal with a gun from killing someone, there's no way that I'm going to fire my weapon. And that's sad because I've been involved in a bad shooting here in the 1990s. And the cops are very hesitant. For example, there's this idea, well, don't pull cars over anymore for whether it be inspection stickers or minor motor vehicle violations. Well, when we pulled cars over for those minor incidents, it led to bigger and bigger prevention of crime because we found weapons and drugs, etc. So the cops are handcuffed. They can't do their job anymore. And that's not from me out of emotion. Believe me, I've spoken to them. I know you have. So as governor, you're going to bring people together. And I think what you said was a great message. Let's work together. But the message that the Dems are giving is to the cops, you do your job, you're going to lose your job.
Yes, and they've created this narrative that you have people sometimes showing more sympathy for the criminal than for the law enforcement professional. Listen, the job has never been harder. Think of all the things that have changed in the community today that make the job all the more challenging. And I'll tell you what's very scary about all this, Steve, and it's everything you were touching upon. We used to get 20,000 applicants a year for state police jobs. We're down to 2,000 applicants. Now, what happens when highly qualified people stop pursuing law enforcement as a career? Doesn't portend good things. So again, we need to build up these people. We need to know they're supported. We need to make the profession attractive again. I certainly would like to see more minorities choose the profession. And again, we do that, I think, by people knowing that if they choose the profession, their elected leaders are going to have their back.
Excellent. Well, before we wrap it up, I've got these messages coming in, and somebody just put down here, any chance he can move to Canada to become our prime minister? Well, no, we got him. You guys in Canada ain't getting this guy.
Hey, Jersey's my last stop, Steve. I've said all along, I don't want to be president. I don't want to be U.S. Senator, and I don't want to write a book. I just look forward to running again for governor and trying to fix our beleaguered state.
Well, we're going to be there for you. I know that a lot of Americans like what they hear, and I'm so thankful to call you my friend. And as we move forward, we're going to do this together. And as I say, you know what? They lose and we win. Any last words to our worldwide audience?
Just thank you to you, Steve, for bringing us all together to have these important discussions. I know you're someone that has a deep love for this country. You have a deep love for the state of New Jersey. And let's remind people, you and I became very close friends because we both ran for governor in the Republican primary back in 2016. We had a great time on the campaign trail together, even though we were competing. And that's something Ronald Reagan taught us to do, too.
He did. And folks, I got to tell you something. During the campaign, we were discussing issues, and Jack had discussed an issue regarding education. We all had to. Remember that? So I was the last guy, the last candidate. So, Lieutenant Rogers, what's your proposals regarding this education program? I said, I got to tell you, I'm done. Jack Giannarelli had the best. What am I supposed to do? Remember that night? The audience was stunned. All right, my friend.
Good to see you, Steve. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you. Thanks very much. God bless you. So there you go. You talk about heroes, folks, American heroes. A Canadian is an American hero. The guy is a grassroots, regular guy, Main Street guy who worked so hard to get where he is today. And he's got the support of the very people who he was rooted in because he didn't forget the people. Isn't that great? Well, thanks a lot, my good friend. All right, folks, we're going to have Wayne Peters on. And we're going to have him on very, very shortly, like in about 30 seconds. Here you go. How about less than 30 seconds? Here we go. Where's Wayne? Hey, Wayne, how are you?
I would have to be bigger to be better. I'm just truly honored and humbled to be sitting backstage listening to such inspiring, profound, honest individuals following what's right and doing the hard work. So I'm grateful. Thank you for having me.
Well, we have you because you're doing the hard work. We have you because when I say they lose and we win, you're a winner. And we're going to talk about some issues, but Wayne, I'm going to ask you to address something that probably better coming from a Canadian in the thick of fire. Okay. It's easy for me to say here in America, be strong, be tough, be courageous. We're winning. You're winning. Believe me. But I see and I'm sensing that the government up there, as our government down here has a habit of doing, They pump out information to scare the living daylights out of people, to instill a fear that paralyzes people, and then convinces them that there's no way you're going to win. But yet history tells us that they always lose and we always win. But we need to stick together, to pray together, to work together, and not give up. So can you please address that issue about the wins and losses? Because I see Canadians winning this. Maybe they're not getting the news we're getting, but can you please address that issue?
I was sitting here watching the comments roll through and how many Canadians were in this international audience that you have, and that people have absorbed so much negativity through this mental conditioning that are de facto government here in Canada has been waging on the people, and it's created this situation of learned helplessness where people are so beaten down that they have this I'm only one person, what can I do mindset, without realizing that at the end of the Wizard of Oz, it was one short little guy standing on top of a stool behind a curtain with all of this machinery that made everybody believe what reality was. And that's the exact situation that we have here. I've seen things evolve an awful lot since I launched my platform 4 years ago. And I'm really excited by what I've seen transpire over the last 6 months to a year. The thirst and the appetite to take responsibility for the knowledge and information that we have is taking a priority for Canadians. And that's ultimately, at the end of the day, what we need to do, because we've kind of gotten lost in the shadow of America as to what's really going on here in Canada, and evil thrives in the darkness and in the shadows. And we have been kind of trapped in that satanic lullaby for a long time, but I see that snapping, and I'm seeing more and more victories coming apart. But it's challenging. It's a challenging environment right now in Canada. Absolutely. These are interesting times.
You know, you put it really perfect, lost in the shadows. That's true. Canada was lost in the shadows of America because America never thought of Canada as being a problem for us, as being a threat to us. The greatest people in the world in Canada. Oh, you hear about they're kind and they're nice and they treat you well. And then the convoy developed, and then we were stunned at the way the people were treated. And then it kind of went away because we were involved in an unnecessary war between Ukraine and Russia, and that's another conversation on another day. Now we've got troubles with the Chinese Communist Party and what they did with regard to intelligence collection, and we're being overwhelmed in America with a lot of critical problems that are truly affecting us. But the message that I want to get to the Canadian people: we're not giving up on you, folks. We're not going to turn our back. We're not going to be so busy that we're going to just put on the shelf 2 years of work. There's a lot of work going on, and you know, we have guests like Wayne on, and Friday night. In fact, I'll tell you who we're going to have on tomorrow night. Now, okay, we're going to have on Pastor Arthur. He's coming on tomorrow night, a special broadcast. And Wayne, I see you smiling because I know you know the man. You're on the front lines with him. But when people hear your name, Wayne, and they hear Pastor Arthur and Tobias and Mr. Peckford, and all of these other people, Alan Nicholson and his wife Carol, who are working hard on the Hague issue. These are people who are grassroots people who have said, we're not going to give up. So the question people ask me, where do you get the courage? Where do you get the courage to do what you're doing? Because, man, you guys are really on the front lines there.
You know, I think this is something that we kind of got stalled and hit a roadblock on. When Trudeau first came into power, he said that Canadians have no core identity. And he was so wrong in all of that. And I think Canadians, that really was like a smack in the face. And it was really put us in glitch mode. And we forgot to take a look at what Canada has done in its short time in the grand scheme of things. And Canada is full of a people that have absolutely intrinsically within them an adapt, improvise, and overcome mindset. We don't come. We generationally have learned to survive and thrive in one of the most harshest environments on the planet and turn it into one of the most desired places to live until Trudeau Senior and Junior on the planet, Canada was an amazing place, but it's not an easy place, and that is intrinsically ingrained in the what is known negatively by the Democratic side of the fence as the old stock Canadians. Well, it was the old stock Canadians that put this country together and have held it together in spite of what they're trying to implement and do right now. And when you look at Canadians, the history of Canada, even in their short period of life in the grand scheme of things, every time Canadians stood up and said no in the world, the rest of the world followed. And that is a historic accuracy. And nobody in the history of warfare ever liked fighting against the Canadians. And the hubris of the soy boys in office tends to think that Canadian people will just bend and melt and fold to them. And I see examples of it every day. The indomitable Canadian spirit that just says, "Here, hold my beer. Let's work on this." So that's kind of it in a nutshell. We're wired for this.
You know, you are wired for it. And when the Freedom Convoy developed in Canada, here's what caught the attention of not only those of us in America, but I could testify to the fact because I have the statements from the European Parliament members and some other leaders around the world. What really captured our attention was the way the Canadian people protested. Peaceful, honorable, didn't disrupt their dignity. I mean, I saw cops engaging civilly with a lot of the citizens, which your media up there didn't show. They I guess they didn't want to show the world how good the Canadian people were. But my point is, you're right. The indomitable spirit of the Canadian people. Amazing how they handled that. And that's what was captured. And what else was captured was the ruthlessness of the Canadian government. I mean, what government turns their police on peaceful protesters? Now, look, we're no angels in America. We have very violent protests. I mean, they're really bad. I mean, it's no secret. They burn police departments down. They're involved in shootings, etc. We have the reverse. We have a Democrat government saying, leave them alone. Let them take the streets. Let them do this. That's all changing now. All of that's changing with our new Congress. But my point is this. The Canadian people are managing to win, if I may use the phrase, without firing, not literally for the Facebook police, okay, without firing one shot. You know what I mean? Without getting into violence, without getting into trying to overthrow a government or whatever. They'd use the Charter of Rights and Freedoms to their benefit. As now, here in America, what a lot of the Americans don't see, and they're beginning to see, we're beginning to use our Constitution of the United States to our benefit. The law is on your side. The law is on our side. And I think that's what is really beginning to take hold. And Wayne, I'd like you to weigh in on this. You know, people say, well, we fear the government. We fear Trudeau. We fear what they're doing and what they can do to us. But I happen to believe that Trudeau and that government that he runs, a bunch of puppets up there in Parliament, it's like the puppets we have here in our Congress, they fear the people. I really believe they fear the people, or they wouldn't be going to the extent they're going in the United States Congress and the Canadian Parliament. They wouldn't be going to the extent they're going and trying to pass laws to take our freedom. But you talked a few minutes ago about history. Apparently, they haven't learned from history. Any people who have been free and the government's been trying to take their freedom, it is the government that put themselves in jail, and the people are still free.
At the end of the day, being a journalist like I am, one of the things that trips me every time is patterns. And some of these patterns are really, really old already, like the pattern of the Trudeau campaign, government team, the whole Liberal Party is an exact clone, duplicate replication of the Clinton campaign model, right down to the nonprofit organizations and the public-private partnerships. They are literally cloned organizations. So we've had, at the expense of Americans and seeing what they've gone through, we've been able to see, recognize, and try to preemptively work against some of these patterns that we've seen coming. But Canada, it was a little bit late to the draw on that because of our personality. And the in Canada, the running joke, we have the Canadian standoff is no, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, no, I'm sorry, right? So that's kind of a real thing in Canada. You'll argue for 5 minutes over who's going to hold the door open for who, and so with the conservative mindset, we weren't generationally organized to oppose and resist such systematic implementation of policy and procedure. People were caught in the satanic lullaby. Life was good. People don't learn the lesson until the price to pay is high enough. It took a lot of suffering for Canadians to realize initially that something was really wrong. And when we did, it took a long time, and we're still learning about how wrong it really is. But it really highlights one of the things that I've noticed, and I would really love to highlight for a second, is the difference between a democracy and a constitutional republic. I see your politicians, particularly the Democratic Party, screaming, "Got to protect democracy! Got to protect democracy!" No, democracy is ruled by the mob. That's what we have in Canada. A constitutional republic is ruled by law and order, where everybody is actually equal. You guys have it right, and you've got to stop enduring and tolerating these abuses of the language that they use to trap you guys in these false dichotomies of conversations that shouldn't even exist. You're not a democracy. If you were a democracy, you would have the problems that Canada does, where it's ruled by the mob and the emotional outbursts of the few, typically the Castro disciples or the Mao disciples or the Z disciples, are controlling parliament and policy through the meat puppets because of those kinds of institutional organizations that they've created. And we're just a little bit late catching up, but we're winning.
You are winning. And by the way, you're right. It begins in elementary school. Instead of telling our kids we're a democracy, they had to tell them we are a constitutional republic. So to the point of, what we're fed, even from an early age. The situation in Canada and the relationship Trudeau has with President Xi in China is very troubling. And we see the same relationship with Joe Biden and the Chinese, especially in view of the fact that during his State of the Union message, he said nothing about China, really nothing. So that was very revealing to us. But here's what I'm seeing regarding a pattern. And by the way, these the information that we're gathering regarding Canada, and I said all along, we cannot interfere with the inner workings of your government. We cannot get involved in trying to influence your lawmakers to do A, B, and C, but we can try to influence all lawmakers and share with them what we believe to be a national security threat to the United States. And that's what we've been doing for quite some time. And we're going to continue to do this. And we're finally, we got some ears who are listening. And I could tell you the other night, Laura Ingraham on Fox News, Tucker Carlson on Fox News. There's going to be more major media outlets. CBC, is that what you call it up there? Canadian Broadcasting? Hey, guys, we're going to share with you for a moment what a constitutional republic, as Wayne said, does with the media. The government does nothing, absolutely nothing. They're not allowed to. So as you guys have to jump when Trudeau says jump and your parliament says jump, you know what? Stick around. Maybe we'll teach you how to be real journalists. But in the United States, the media is beginning to pick up on what is really going on with regard to Canada. Now, one thing that I'm still trying to get a little bit more clarity on, maybe you do, illegal immigrants being sent north to Canada from the United States. I don't know how that came about. I don't know whose idea other than Joe Biden's idea and Trudeau. They probably made a deal. Who knows? But the problem with that is that the illegal immigrants coming from our southern border, there have been terrorist people on terrorist cells, the drug proliferation, on and on and on. And what bothers me is, Wayne, and I'd ask you to weigh in on this, doesn't only bother me because we do have what we see. Trudeau in that parliament, and some of you guys in parliament, if you're watching or you're operatives, I have a question. Why are you concentrating more on the law-abiding citizens of your country than the real bad guys? And I think, Wayne, when I'm troubled, I really have a fear about this regarding your country. The parliament, the police, you've got a kind country. They've never been confronted with bad people like we have. I mean, violent people that are killers. And God forbid that ever happen in Canada. But I'm worried that the resources of your government seem to be focused on the law-abiding people by passing all these ridiculous laws to hinder their freedom, and their eyes are not on the ball when it comes to the possibility of real bad people entering your country. And by the way, shame on the United States if we allowed that to happen. If these people that are sent to Canada from the Biden administration should have been sent back to wherever they came from. They're here illegally. But how is it? We're going to find out how is it and who did this with regard to sending illegal immigrants to Canada.
Well, I don't know how much time you want and how many details you want on that, but that is a problem that first motivated me about a year and a half ago to start reaching out to some American compatriots to say, look, in the spirit of Laura Secord, you guys need to know what's coming. You guys have been polarized by your southern border, and you guys are not seeing what's developing and happening in Canada under this regime that we have here. When Tucker made his allegations last week about liberating Canada from a hostile dictatorship, and he got mocked in your guys' media and just attacked by our media and parliamentarians up here, he's not wrong. He is probably the only guy that is accurately reflecting, although he said that tongue-in-cheek humor. If Americans knew the extent of that infiltration, literally the population replacement of Canadians by undesirables and people that are hostile to America, and the percentage of people that are fleeing Canada and leaving said personnel to gather in an escalating percentages that are beyond comprehension, when we're year by year bringing in single digit percentages of cultured people that have nothing in common and no vested interest in anything that makes us Canada or America. And it has become Canada's parliamentary government system has become a model for human trafficking, creating an entire infrastructure to aid and support said migrants that they're importing through every means possible. And yes, busing them in from the southern border as they are coming through here. And one of the things that he has done up here is he has decriminalized all of the things that these type of people, like these violent extremists, like to do. For example, in Canada, Trudeau decriminalized owning bomb-making equipment from a 10-year sentence and a $100,000 fine down to a $250 fine and 6 months of probation. And he has done that through all of the successive top crime things, criminal act endeavors that these people wage war with. Trudeau has one by one decriminalized all of those things and has incentivized them to come to Canada with no policy, no control, no measure, no understanding, no security. Our security, international border security, is now contracted out to a CCP security firm who looks after Canada's border security. So as much trouble as you guys are in with your southern border, if I was an American, I would be far more concerned about the border that has no eyes on it.
Well, I could tell you, Wayne, the eyes are beginning to open up very wide here. We see what's going on thanks to Fox and Newsmax and One America News. I mean, a lot of these networks are picking up what's going on there. And I've got to tell you, what's been most effective is the live streaming. I mean, it's incredible how many people not only watch our broadcasts, but some of the broadcasts that are like ours that you have in Canada have been shared all over this country. And people are shocked. They're stunned when they hear what's going on there. And they're beginning to realize that Trudeau, here's what I find absolutely amazing. So you have Trudeau, and you have guys like Biden, but let's talk about Trudeau and the Parliament. And I'm going to address some of them who may be watching. I know some of their operatives watch, but I want you guys to understand something. When your government and the leaders of your government get cozy with the Chinese Communist Party, and you start passing laws that mirror Marx, Lenin, Stalin, and the communist ideology, those laws are going to be turned on you. The Chinese Communist Party is going to be looking at you not as friend, but as Canadians, as foes. Whether you're the prime minister, whether you're a member of parliament, they're going to come after you because that's what communists do. And you will be enslaved to the Communist Party. Believe me, take it from me, folks. Believe me. My military career, I worked a lot on Soviet Communist Party ideologies, understood it clearly. President Reagan did when he was here and defeated them because he knew what was coming to America. If he allowed the Soviet Communist Party to grab a foothold, and Wayne, they almost did in the United States of America, and they did it to a point, folks, where they were literally, not only figuratively, but literally in bed with politicians. And we had an incident with a congressional representative here in the United States, who hopefully will be canned out of Congress at some point, who was cozying up, again, literally to a Chinese Communist Party operative. They're in our schools, they're in our corporations, on and on and on. Now, you'd think, Wayne, that these people who I just addressed in your government, as well as the American Congress, you'd think they would understand, you know what? Again, it goes back to your point. Learn from history. Communists will not give up their power, and they will take it from you if they can't have it handed to them. My goodness, parliament members, congressional members, you're handing the Chinese Communist Party what they want. Wayne?
Well, you've 100% nailed it. But what these guys have done is they've wrapped it up, all of these things that they're doing, and it's like a Christmas tree buffet, a Christmas buffet of gifts, different wrappers, different colors of all these different things that they're using to wage this unrestricted warfare on us. And these policies in Canada right now, and this ties into the 15-minute cities, that are what they're doing now, and we're seeing across the country in every single county and municipality, an assault on the land use bylaws in order to rewrite the land use bylaws so that every municipality and community comes into compliance with the new ESG laws, the environmental laws and sustainable laws that make these communities and municipalities then compliant to the globalist policy that all was signed on board under the UN SDA. So people didn't understand what that meant. This is what it means. It means that they are literally inventorying every blade of grass, every chicken, every egg, every inch of barbed wire, and they are going to make sure that if you step on a blade of grass, you will be charged for the said blade of grass. So this has now reached the municipal level, this infiltration that is literally all of this Marxist policy, and they've been able to do this through the public-private partnerships where they have given corporations billions of dollars in order to partner with them to fight the Covinism and all of that, and now are complicit in the status where we're at now. And they have literally captured most of the municipalities under false pretenses that are now contractually obligated to implement these things, but it's not working because the people are finding it out at the last second, and they are figuring out that it's just a small number of people that scream really loud. They have the best stereos, the best speakers. They own all of the media, and that's the other thing that I'd like to highlight here is that people need to understand that the censorship and propaganda work together. Neither one is successful without the other. That is a two-pronged assault that is always engaged to divide and conquer a nation. With your background, you've seen that happen a bazillion times, and I'm pretty sure that's where you got started in fighting for Canada, is seeing exactly that taking place. And so the more desperate they get, the harder they hit with the big hammers. The censorship bills that are coming in, C11, C18 works in tandem with that. But it's all part of the charade that they're trying to lead us down to literally end up in these, what they call 15-minute cities, which is working in partnership. That's the next wave of the Green New Deal campaign. the just transition marketing strategy that's coming up now. You guys are going to start hearing about all of that really, really soon. And the interesting part that Americans need to understand is the only reason this hasn't happened there yet was because Trump slowed it down. When Trump got you guys out of the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda and he told them no, it was a time of the Patriot, that guy's got you a respite, a reprieve. So Canada kept going, kept plugging along. So we're just a little bit further down that path. So it's really important for people all over the continent to see what's going on here in Canada, learn from it, recognize the word salad vernacular that they use to wrap this up in their pretty little psychotic bows and deliver it, and get involved, take responsibility for your communities.
Well, now that there's a Republican Congress here, I could tell you the 15-minute city proposals lasted 15 minutes. DOA, dead on arrival. And they know it's not going to happen.
That is such good news. Such good news.
That's dead on arrival. Now, a couple of issues I'm going to kind of run a chill up and down the spine of some of your leaders, okay? And I'm going to look at the camera. I'm going to look at them. I'm going to ask you directly. The laws you're passing now, don't you have any respect to protect your children? Your children and grandchildren are going to live under enslavement. Not only for those of you in the Canadian Parliament, but here in America, we've talked to congressional representatives about that. When you're trying to take freedom away from people today, that freedom is being taken away from your children and grandchildren. You all ought to be ashamed of yourselves. And here's another thing. So here's the chill part. What makes you guys, whether you're in Congress and gals in Congress or in the Canadian Parliament, what makes you think that your children are not watching this broadcast? What makes you think there's thousands of American young people, college students and high school students, and in Canada as well as America? What makes you think they're not watching this broadcast? Or some of the other broadcasts in Canada who are working hard to bring credible information? What makes you think that they're unaware of it? Well, you're thinking wrong, because I know different. And one day I'll tell you what I know. But you better understand this, that if you think you're winning, you're going to lose. But you're going to lose your freedom. Because the people of Canada and the people of the United States, as we've demonstrated here, we can win by working within the framework of the law. And Wayne, I believe sometimes, whether they're government people or just maniacs out there, there are a lot of people who, when they see our side, all right, which is for freedom and individual rights, winning, they'll try to create a disturbance. They'll try to create something that will draw attention off of the narrative we want to give out to a violent narrative. So I caution people, and I know you do too, and others, don't fall into the trap of listening to their propaganda of fear, and just stay the course. And one thing before I hand it off to you, the World Economic Forum, we did a deep dive. I got a lot of resources, and I said, guys, I want to know, tell me, I really want to see the success of the WEF. I mean, there's so much stuff coming out about bugs and this and that. Tell me about it. Well, you find out when you do a deep dive, they really haven't had much success. The windmills, the climate change stuff and the windmills energy have failed across America. New Jersey, we got now, as of recently, dozens of whales being beached dead over what? Windmills. Then we've got the energy crisis. We want to get rid of gas stoves. We want to get rid of gas cars, switch electric. We got more cars burning up in this country as a result of electric replacing gas. The WEF, in effect, has not accomplished very much. Even the 15-minute cities. Well, I heard somebody from France. They said, well, Paris is becoming. It's always is becoming. You never hear that, folks. We hear Paris is a 15-minute city. This city's a 15. Well, you do a deep dive, you find out that's not true. It's always, it's happening. It's the beginning. It's the concept. So, Wayne, my point, to follow up on something that you said about wins and losses, they got a lot of big mouths over there at the WEF, but a lot of bullets coming out of their mouths. And I'll tell you one thing, they've got a propaganda machine. They do. And when you're hit with all that propaganda, it leads you to believe, my God, the earth is falling. The sky is falling. Yeah, it's falling on their heads, folks, on their heads.
It really, truly is. And what we have to I guess one of the things that we could do better is to reconnect with the youth and let them know that there is hope, there is a future, this is not the end of the world. What makes you feel like it's the end of the world is the propaganda from these machines, and we need to do an intervention on that media level internationally, and it's coming slowly but surely. And I see the evidence of this every day. For a small independent journalist like myself, until the latest wave of censorship, I was reaching literally 2/3 of what the CBC, our entire CBC organization, was reaching. So that's a $3 billion expense that I was almost equating myself. So when you start to add up all of the people like me that are the whack-a-moles of truth out there, that will not be silenced, that keep fighting back and standing up and showing up every single day and seeing the victories and connecting the people and all of those things, they don't stand a chance. They truly don't. And we need to convey that to our youth a little bit better. And that's where, our ears are our best weapons. They always have been, always will be. And the closer we get back to our humanity and the things that does make life work, and stop giving life to the wedge issues, the wedge factors, those kinds of things, and show a little leadership, show a little compassion to the youth, start planning out the things and fortifying our communities again, looking within, because this is where it truly all changes. Because and what people need to understand about the World Economic Forum is every bit of suffering in your country right now, both countries, comes as a result of the World Economic Forum and their failed policies that are nothing more than, these people are nothing more than the puppets behind the puppet masters of some of the global largest corporations that have decided that they want to control the governments of all of the world together. And this started back in 1946 already. So this is a long entrenched ideology that is like like we're trying to run down a snow-covered hill and picking up speed and out of control, and your gloves everything is coming off of the trails and it's about to crash. That is literally what is happening to a World Economic Forum, and it's time to look within and fortify our communities, because it's going to hurt before it gets better. But I 100% believe at the end of the day that the closer we start coming to our communities, the faster that we end all of this, and God wins at the end of the day. The sooner we do what we know is right instead of what is easy, the faster that happens. So it's really embracing our communities. They operate from a system that demands political reliability, not just political correctness, political reliability. And if you do not give them 100% devoted political reliability, they will assault you with contempt immediately. And that is where we have to understand at that point, that is our time to walk away, to not engage in those kinds of frivolous emotional activities that lead to more chaos and disruption. Use your energy better elsewhere. There's good people that are going to be happy to work with you. Don't endure any of that contempt. You're doing the right thing.
Well, we're going to wrap it up, Wayne. A couple of things as you were speaking about sitting with them and walking away. I would encourage people to look at the first Psalm, the first and second verse. It's to your point. And secondly, you're right. Maybe the conversation around our kitchen tables, as Jack Chitterelli said earlier, is how we're going to win. Build a strategy. Forget what they say. And I'm glad you really put it in great terms the way you said it. These people have a loud mouth. They got a loud voice, a loud microphone, but they're saying nothing. And Wayne, one point you made, you said earlier about them, maybe trying to win land and win this and win. They're never going to win the heart, soul, and spirits of people who want to be free. Never going to happen. They first came after our religion. They came after our houses of worship. They're losing that on every front. And at the end of the day, well, they lose and we win. Any last thing to say to our worldwide audience? You really did well. Thank you.
This is absolutely, we are in the middle of World War III. This is a war of conquest. They do want our lands, our countries, our nations, but they don't have the guts to confront us face to face and fight for our lands, we know we will wipe the deck with them and it's game over. So they are using the devil's means of deception and every bit of technology at their disposal. And that is where humanity and the indomitable spirit and coming together and eliminating this imaginary 49th parallel that's between us, we have the same oppressors and we all win the same way. And we can do that together. And I am honored to have this opportunity to speak to your community.
It's an honor to have you on and to call you friend. And can we have you on again sometime in the near future?
Absolutely, but I would request a reciprocal visit with our community up here sometime soon as well. And people, I got to get you on some of our platforms up here. We're doing some great stuff, and looking forward to kicking some more darkness out of our lives.
We'll do that. You see here, right here, we'll live up to that. Those two hands, right, shaking across the border. Thank you, Wayne. Thanks so much. Stand by, folks. Thanks a lot, Wayne. God bless you. Stand by, folks. We're going to thank Wayne. So there you go. Another courageous patriot in Canada who's fighting for freedom and individual rights. And we're going to be doing this as time goes on. So, folks, we're not going to give up. No matter how preoccupied or occupied, shall I say, we get with some of the problems we're having in America, we have a great interest, a real good, solid interest. I'm talking grassroots America. You're not hearing much from our politicians, but they're getting the word from us. This is why it's so important we do what we're doing and you do what you're doing. Now, folks, once again, I'm going to ask you to consider something. And, I don't like this part, but I've got to now. First of all, keep us in your prayers, all right? We're okay, but keep us in your prayers because we know that God answers prayer. Our strength comes from him. We are the only, from what I understand, we are the only USA American live stream broadcasting with regard to all the issues happening in Canada. The only way people are going to get these messages in America right now in the capacity and magnitude they're getting is from this broadcast. And I hope more and more and more American broadcasters come on. Look, we're not in this in any competitive way. If there are American live streamers out there, get in touch with us and guys, go to it. We got to get the American people from coast to coast to know what's going on in Canada. So far, we've been very, very successful because of you. But importantly, too, folks, we do need support. We do need financial support. I always say, pay your bills first, take care of your bills. Believe me, I mean that. But we've grown, and the influence now is beyond whatever we never expected. All right, never anticipated how powerful your voice has come through this medium. This is why our Congress fears live streaming. This is why the Canadian Parliament and other government entities around the world fear these live streaming capacities because we're able to get to the people. So we're growing, but we know that with that growth, we're going to need the support. What I find amazing is that the opposition gets all the money they want. I mean, I've said it at meetings here, political meetings. The political people who do the fundraising are getting tens of thousands of dollars from the very people who want freedom and liberty. And they'll whether you're Republican, they'll give these politicians all the money in the world. And these politicians, no matter what party, really don't deliver on the promises that they say they would deliver on. Now, many of them do, and God bless them, and I'll support them all the way. But now we're at a movement, an ideological war, as Wayne said, against communism, against atheism, against socialism, against people who want to take our freedom away. So I implore you and ask you to consider whatever you can give us, please give us. And I'm not going to make this a weekly thing where I'm going to come on the air like it's a fundraising telethon. I have to depend on your prayers and hopefully, you'll understand the passion and magnitude of this. Our children and grandchildren are depending on what we do today. So we do need your financial support. Now, saying that, we are no longer, and people have asked me about this, we are no longer using PayPal. Now, why? And look, we got a lot of fundraising in the past through PayPal, but what they did to the Canadian people with regard to money that was seized, or PayPal's rules and regulations regarding looking at content, and then they had to pull back on some ridiculous proposal, whether it was true or not. It did get out that they were going to find organizations, maybe like ours, that if we violated their rules of engagement, they were violating and threatening to take our free speech away. So we got rid of them. We fired them. And so we ask you, you got MasterCard, Visa, credit card, go to our website. It's right there. You'll see the little donate button. And if you can make a donation to us, it'd be great. People ask how much, as much as you are led to give. Because if we could bring the funding in that we really want in here, I mean, this is going to explode big, far, and wide. It's going good now, but I'd like to have more guests on, a little bit more efficient technology, so that we'll be able to have 2 or 3 guests on and actually have an open discussion, and then have some of you on. Yeah, that's right. Some of the people watching, I'd like to have some of you on the broadcast. So we'll be able to do these things effectively. Now, with regard to C11, I won't get into too much of that, but we found a way. We found a way to overcome it legally. We found a way. And I'm not going to reveal it now, because right now, C11, I understand they're trying to modify it. They're doing certain things there, but we're notifying and have notified our government with leaders, some of them, what's going on there with C11, because it truly, folks, in our view, inhibits individual rights and freedom of speech in our country as well as yours. Now, to the congressmen watching, or the political leaders in America watching, our country, the United States of America, we have always led the way worldwide in the fight against tyranny. We have led the world, a beacon of light for freedom and liberty. And unfortunately, because of the Democrats in this country, that light has been almost snuffed out. Well, we're reigniting that light with a Republican Congress, with a Republican Senate coming our way, and a Republican President of the United States. But more importantly, the strength of the Republican patriots of this country, people who believe in the Constitution, grassroots Americans and Main Street Americans have taken control of school boards, of city councils. Folks, here in the United States, we've had a complete, total city council. Think about this, folks. All members of a city council, and I tell you what the city is, I just can't remember it. The entire city council flipped from Democrat to Republican. You want to know why? Because in the Democrat Party, there are American patriots. And in Canada, you're going to see the same thing happens. You're going to win. You're going to win, and we're going to stick with you, and we're going to be side by side. And I hope one day, and I pray one day, that this hand you see here, where is it? Right here, that American hand is my hand crossing the border to your country, shaking the hand of every Canadian that I could find. I want to see that a reality without anybody asking for any passports or vaccination cards or this or that. I want to see that happen. Ronald Reagan said that when he was around with regard to Soviet Russia. Well, it happened. The Berlin Wall came down, the electronic wall in Canada is coming down, and everything is going to work out fine if we just stick together, work together. We are a nightmare. When I say you and I and America and Canadians coming together, this is the birth of a whole new movement. Not just Canada, not just America, but guess what? North America. Canada first for the Canadian people, but Canada not alone. America first for the American people, but America not alone. We are not alone. We are not alone. And what's exciting about saying we're not alone, we have each other, but we have a God. We have a God watching over us. He gave us the gift of freedom and liberty, and doesn't intend to let anyone take it away. Thanks a lot, folks. Please, campaignforamerica.com. If you're led to, please, when we hang up, please do it now. A pastor once said to me, Steve, I'll pray for you. And I said, gee, thanks. When? He said, now, because I'll forget 5 minutes from now. So please, if you're not preoccupied, think of the magnitude of the war we're at, but it's a war that's winnable. We work within the framework of our laws, and we're going to need the resources. That's it. Thanks a lot, folks. God bless you. Tomorrow night, Pastor Arthur, please tune in and spread the word. It'll be another great broadcast here on This Week in North America. God bless you all. Thank you for watching.